Alright everyone, Dork Brandon just ended his speech at Valley Forge. It was pretty much as expected. Mud J6, attacks on democracy, Orange Man bad, he wants to be a dictator. The funny thing is that actually, Joe Biden has a tendency in major speeches to do the thing where he lifts his voice up really high, and then he hushes it back down and he almost whispers to the audience. The funny thing is there have been psychological essays written about how Adolf Hitler capitalized upon that particular strategy in order to get people to listen more closely. Now, the quiet parts are the important ones, more emotional and so forth, and so you oscillate between the two, and I've read literature on that subject. If Donald Trump had this particular thing in mind, I guarantee that there would definitely be some Nazi references in legacy media reporting. Of course, Trump just doesn't give a damn. He just says whatever the hell comes to mind mostly and just gives a good old rant. I thought that the speech, though, overall, was hilariously ironic. And of course, there's a bunch of astroturfing by the mostly paid shills on Twitter and elsewhere. Oh my god, Dark Brandon, it was such a great speech and stuff. But it's just a rehash of things he's already said, just compiled into a 1 hour long speech. The irony, though, the most funny part to me, is the location that he chose this speech in, which is Valley Forge. Valley Forge was, I believe, in the third year of the Continental Army, their winter quarters. The problem being that the Continental Army technically were insurrectionists. The fact that they happened to win is the only reason why history books don't look at them as a bunch of brutal rebels, ragtag forces that were conjured up out of people's ignorance. Had they lost, George Washington would not be remembered as a saintly figure or anything like that, or as some great leader. He would have turned in his sword, been locked in the brig, and he would have been called a disgrace. He would have just been called a criminal, an evildoer, effectively. The fact is that the Continental Army was comprised of people who really liked guns, didn't really like taxation. By the way, of course, it was the former issue that actually started the shooting war during the American Revolution. It was the attempted confiscation of an armory. It had nothing to do with tea taxes. That was just the lead up to it. George Washington, I do not believe, would support the kind of policies that Joe Biden typically has in mind. Nor, by the way, would he necessarily support a lot of Donald Trump's policies. Of course, he comes from the classically liberal period in the early founding of the United States. I don't think that he would like the sort of corporate politics of the modern day that really pretty much everyone in Congress, etc., has in mind. Dork Brandon's speech was completely off the chain. He did his squinty-eyed, teeth-clenched sort of old man thing. He tries to look powerful, and then he does the demure thing. It doesn't really work for him. And again, the location of this speech could not be more ironic. One of the most iconic locations throughout the Revolutionary War, which was fought by the citizens of a state against its own government. When Paul Revere had his famous ride, he did not say the British were coming, because they were all British at the time. He said the regulars were coming, as opposed to the militia, which is literally what George Washington and his people were, which is also ultra-ironic because Joe Biden represents the political force that's trying to rip apart the militia's ability to actually be properly regulated, aka to function properly, as in be well-armed. His rant was just a rehash of all the same old shit that we've heard. J6 was an attempt to overthrow the government. Donald Trump is a loser, attempting to do the belittling thing because his fans have no testosterone, so they have to vicariously get off, etc., etc., etc. And pretending, by the way, that the election is a referendum on democracy while he's attempting to jail his political opponent. That's rather ironic, too. In fact, I haven't seen something this ironic in my entire existence. This is the most ironic thing, singularly, that I think I've seen in my entire goddamn life. From the venue, to the claims that are made, to the pontificating, to Joe Biden pretending that his opponent is a loser when he struggled to walk across the goddamn White House lawn to Marine One in order to get to Valley Forge earlier in the first place. Everything about this could not be more cringe and could not be more ironic. Likewise, I notice a startling lack of coverage, actually, of the speech, at least among the little people like us. Legacy media is talking a big thing about it. Fox has a piece, well, here's Biden's top 10 divisive moments, MSNBC has, here's the top 10 great moments of Dark Brandon's speech and dumb shit like that. I don't see actually that many people talking about it on the usual places that you would expect politics to be talked about. Almost not even worth a mention. It's almost like nobody goddamn gives a shit. And that I had to suffer through actually watching the speech, or at least mainly listening to it, in order to talk about it at all, when probably 90% of you didn't bother to tune in. So that's my my recap of Dork Brandon's epic speech. Deliverance banjo sort of look. Hilariously ironic choice of venue. I mean, it was clearly chosen on purpose to try to give the illusion that, like George Washington, his ghost has his hand on Joe Biden's shoulder. Don't worry, we'll save our republic from the evil orange man, or something dumb like that. It's propaganda, actually, the reason why it was chosen, but it just becomes hilariously ironic when you consider what Valley Forge represents. It represents the quartering site of an insurrection, a literal insurrection, that no political power in the entire world recognized the sovereignty of the people that became the citizens of the United States. At that time, they recognized them as British. And the bitch with the British government was one part, you're taxing us too much and not representing us. Hey, DC, you know, take a note. And one part, we started shooting you because you tried to take our guns away. How very, very insane. I don't know that this is going to go over well for Biden once this irony, the hilarious irony, is more deeply explored by more people, because it's sheer. Like a 10 out of 10. Like if there was I give it an 11 out of 10 on the irony scale. It's just hilarious in every possible way. Link in the description. You can watch the speech if you want. The reception was overwhelmingly negative. By the way, you can restore the YouTube dislike function if you want. There are add-ons for that for various browsers. I'm using one myself. So I can see that right now, the ratio ain't looking really good. But then that's normal, because everything that Joe Biden says is a goddamn train wreck. That's about all. Peace out.